Lashley.
Your voice, John Smith. All right, let's get serious. I think we're going live here in a few seconds. Let me get roll call. Dakani, are you here?
Present.
Smith, are you here?
I'm here.
Okay. Karl, going once. Guys, what are we gonna? No El Karl, no El Karl again this week. All right, let's see if he shows up here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Essential Wrestling Podcast, episode number 44. It is March 9th, 2021. Al Karl is on assignment, but here today we have John Smith. John, how are you?
Episode 44, huh? Still tipping on 4-4s. I like it.
And on the bottom side of the screen, we have John Dakani. John, welcome.
Good evening, sir. Al's really taking these back-to-back Miz losses hard, huh?
Yes, yeah. He'll be back eventually. I understand he'll be back next week, but Bobby Lashley had his first WWE Championship defense, so Miz is in the rear view, I think. Coming up on the show today, we have Kenny Omega winning the barbed wire sparkler match to retain the AEW World Championship. Gary Mehaffy will be here to celebrate the continued reign of Kaylie Ray. I don't care what Gala says. It is her kingdom. Travis is here to talk with me about New Japan Cup and everything else going on in the world. Mentioned Bobby Lashley's first title defense. Daniel Bryan is seeking to change the WrestleMania main event by getting a win over Roman Reigns at Fastlane. And tonight's main event is Impact Sacrifice, where every match so far is a title match. But we curtain jerk the show today with NXT. We have a big episode of NXT coming up this Wednesday with multiple title matches. But let's start back with last week. John Smith, Danny Burch, and Oney Lorcan getting a win over Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher in the opening contest.
Yeah, that would be Borkin and Lurch, you mean? Yeah, they put on a nice match. Thatcher hurt his shoulder early on in the match, and they worked that throughout, and then Imperium came up to the ramp, but they just stayed on the ramp, but just their presence there distracted Ciampa and Thatcher enough where Burch and Lorcan could get the win. So that's the way that one went, and I guess we're looking towards Thatcher and Ciampa going up against Imperium next.
You think that's what it is, or do you think that Ciampa and Thatcher maybe going up against each other if they can't straighten this thing up?
I think I've heard rumblings like Timothy Thatcher could join Imperium. I don't know necessarily if that's the case, but that would be an interesting feud where it's like a tag team feud, and then Thatcher ends up turning his back on Ciampa, joins Imperium, and then they go at it again because they had some classic matches already.
Absolutely. And we see James Wheeler chiming in for the first time this episode. He says maybe a triple threat tag team title match in the future. That's a possibility as well. Al Karl, he would like to say that he is here, even though he's not here. Let's move on. We have women's division action from last week, John Dakani. We have two matches that we saw on the show last week.
Yes, the second match of the night was Ember Moon and Aaliyah. Ember had Shotzi at ringside to keep the Stone brand, Robert Stone and Jessica Maya, from getting involved. And that was pretty much all Ember Moon needed to, in not too short order, hit the Eclipse for the win. So she took care of the Robert Stone brand. And the very next match, though, was our long-anticipated Women's Tag Team Championship match between Nia and Shayna, defending against Dakota and Raquel. So these ladies were tearing it down for a good while here. It was mayhem inside and outside the ring, and eventually enough of the mayhem to take the ref completely out of the picture. So we wind up with Dakota and Shayna in the ring, but we have no ref. We have the Cure Food Clutch is locked on. There's no ref. Adam Pearce comes out to the top of the ramp, sends down a Raw referee who jumps in and takes a look at the situation and counts Dakota out. She's unconscious at this point, but she wasn't the legal person in the match, so she should not have been able to be counted out. So the match was called off. Nia and Shayna, quote unquote, officially retained. But this led to some barking backstage between Regal and Pierce, and to what's being advertised for tomorrow night, one of the two very big announcements, I imagine, by GM Regal will have something to do with this.
Yeah, that's right. So last week they did announce that we were going to have a major announcement that is going to change the landscape of NXT. And of course, it was pertaining to the finish in this match. But then last night on Raw, they said there's going to be two major announcements. So you figure one is probably related to the women's division, and one is maybe related to the day of the week that we proceed with NXT on, I would think.
Very likely.
John Smith, any other speculation in that regard on what these major announcements could be?
I think it's going to be a women's tag team championship. I just wish it wasn't. I like the idea of the women having a tag team championship strictly on NXT, but I think that they should have taken those belts off of Shayna and Nia and then just, kept it on NXT and maybe had a once in a while, where they would go to Raw or SmackDown. But I don't think it's necessary to have two women's tag team championships right now.
Yeah, I think that I think you could make the same point with the men's tag team titles. To be fair, you could have them.
Absolutely.
There's not that many tag teams on Raw and SmackDown. They could be traveling to NXT as well. So, and I think all of in our hearts of hearts, all wanted Raquel and Dakota to win those tag titles. I mean, I don't think anybody was rooting for Shayna and Nia. So, but John Smith, sticking with you, Cameron Grimes, there's somebody that we've all rooted for in our entire existence.
Yeah, Moneybags Cameron Grimes over at the Cameron Grimes Arena, as we will now call it from now on. It's no longer the CWC.
CGA. Mm-hmm.
He's continuing his backstage feud with the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, who is not even employed by the WWE, and he tries to buy his way out of a match that Regal's given him. Cameron Grimes does need an IRS. He needs somebody to keep him in check with all those bills he's throwing around. But he ended up having to face Bronson Reed. Couldn't buy his way out of it backstage. Couldn't buy his way out of it in the ring. They start fighting each other on top of the money, which was pretty fun. They had a nice little match. LA Knight cut his promo right before the match. Yes. L.A. Knight. Yeah, that's how it goes. Go backwards. I don't know which way to do it. L.A. Knight cut a nice promo beforehand, and him and Bronson Reed kind of shared a look as they passed each other by. And I could tell right then and there that Bronson Reed was going to end up being L.A. Knight's first feud. I actually thought that L.A. Knight would come out and cost him the match, and that's what happened. Cameron Grimes gets a hard-fought victory at the expense of Bronson Reed and with the assist from LA Knight. And I'm excited to see what LA Knight has to say about Bronson Reed next week.
Yeah, this would be an interesting feud for LA Knight to kick things off in NXT. Kind of I didn't expect it to be Bronson Reed of all people, but I guess that's where we are. So, Everrise was supposed to have a match with Breezango, but Legado del Fantasma took both of them out. So presumably Legado will have some sort of match retribution with them in the coming weeks. Johnny Gargano sponsored a therapy session for The Way. It seems he may have paid off the therapist, but Austin Theory, cured or not, guys?
The mere mention of his mediocre abs sent him into hysterics. I don't think he's past this.
Well,
brilliant move by Johnny.
Yeah, it was a fun segment, and I think whenever we have an advertisement for therapy on NXT, I think we're in for a treat. So we've seen that with the Undisputed Era. Now we've got it with the Way. So what's next? Roderick Strong, speaking of Undisputed Era, Roderick Strong wanted to hear from Adam Cole. Finn Balor interrupted that. He says, I know how to get Adam Cole out here. I'll give him a title match next week. So we've got that match lined up. We're going to pick that in a few seconds. But first, Roderick Strong and Finn Balor in the main event of NXT last week. Finn Balor got the win. I didn't think any big surprise there. But Adam Cole and Finn Balor are staring at each other at the end of the show. John Smith, you are the senior NXT correspondent. Do we have a title change in the men's division next week?
Oh, I would love to see that. Is that tonight or tomorrow, or is that next week?
By next week, I mean tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, I gotta stick with Balor. I'd love to see Adam Cole take this title back, but I don't think it's happening.
John DeConnie, is Karrion Kross going to be the guy who takes that title if it's not Adam Cole?
That would be my guess. That's where I figured it was headed all along. Now, does it make stops in between there and Kross? It's possible, but I think it makes the most sense to leave it on Balor until he fights Kross.
Okay.
If they want Kross to have a dominating victory, I think they're better off having Cole win this match and then have Kross beat him in 45 seconds in their title match, because it's more believable to him to get destroyed by Kross than Finn Balor, in my opinion.
That's an interesting insight. Yeah.
The way you built Balor, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's only the first of 2 title matches tomorrow night. We also have Toni Storm challenging Io Shirai for the women's championship. I actually had graphics for both those matches. I may as well use them. I brought them. 4-0 for Finn Balor. No singles matches for Adam Cole this year. So I think Balor has your edge there. He'd be 5-0 if he gets that W. And then we have this Toni Storm's 1-0, Io Shirai 2-0. John DeConnie, I'll go with you first. Who are you liking this? We're going to have a new NXT women's champion?
Man, I would absolutely love for Toni to take it here, but I just something tells me Io is going to retain.
John Smith?
Yeah, I hate to agree with that, but I feel the same way. I'd love to see Toni take it, but the Io show isn't over yet.
Where does Io go next? Raquel Gonzalez? Is that what are we still hung up on that, you think?
Yeah, you think possibly they'll end up having another women's tag team tournament for their new women's tag team belts that Raquel Gonzalez won't win, and then she'll be going up against Io in that regard, I think.
Yeah, it seems like the women's division, if we have an announcement for tag titles, the whole women's division is going to be busy with that. So does Io have a tag partner in this? I don't know. One more match, though, and this is a tough one. I don't know if you guys will be able to pick this tonight, but we have Xia Li and we have Caden Carter. It's not a question of who's going to win this match. It's a question of how long this match is going to go. So, guys, John Smith, starting with you. What do you think?
I usually go too low on these and say 45 seconds or a minute, but I'm going to say 2:15. I'm going to put it at
2:15. Okay.
Yeah.
John DeConnie?
Give me the over, but just by a little bit. It's still definitely going to be Xia.
Okay. Nobody thinks Casey's going to come down and delay this a little bit,
That's why I'm picking the over. Maybe Casey gets involved here, stretches it out a little bit.
James being very active in the comments, and everybody else can jump in too, but theorizing that Io could even break Asuka's record. Maybe Xia Li is the one who takes down Io Shirai.
Oh, duh.
Possibility,
Duh.
right?
I haven't even thought of that. Yeah.
All right, guys. Anything else on NXT? I think we can put a pin in that. I think we've knocked out NXT. Anything else before I bring in Gary as we go across the pond to talk about NXT UK?
Just let Gary know that Santos Escobar is still better than Jordan Devlin for me. Okay.
All right, I will tell him that right away. All right, guys.
Thank you.
We'll see you. Go get your groceries. You got New Japan after this, so you got a few minutes break here. So see you back in a short period of time here. All right, bringing Gary in first. Take these guys out. Gary, how are you?
Not too bad. I didn't realize that John Smith had taken up stand-up comedy. That was very funny. Saying that Santos Escobar was better than Jordan Devlin. That was a zinger there to end up with. That was, you know.
So you heard him. He's throwing down. He's throwing some shots fired there. I think when we eventually get to that match, because we will. The pandemic will eventually end, and I don't think either one of those guys is dropping the title until we get to Escobar and Jordan Devlin.
Yeah,
from your standpoint,
they definitely.
I think it's going to be the undisputed champion of cruiserweights.
It's interesting because Wade Barrett obviously has dropped Devlin in the. Say on commentary in the last 3, 4, or 5 weeks, he dropped Devlin in the commentary. I think if push came to shove, as much as I'd like, I know they were going to give Devlin a big push, but to me, I would say that probably Escobar would go over, and they would do that. Although the hard thing will be because they would both be seen as being heels in inverted commas, but I do think that. If push came to shove, that Triple H would probably go with Escobar, I would say, but you never know.
Yeah, I'd like to get a Devlin in a position where he could challenge for the big title, and with Walter over there, it just doesn't feel like he's going to pose a threat to a big guy like that. Of course, you got Cross on the other side too, that's likely to be holding that title before long. So, but Finn Balor and Devlin, we've seen it once at a takeover, at a UK takeover. So. That's an option. Or Cole and Devlin. Yeah. So those are both good matches. But we are here to talk about NXT UK. And Jordan Devlin's not on the agenda this week, unfortunately. But we do have Ilya Dragunov versus Sam Gradwell. 8 minutes on the beginning of NXT UK last week. Referee stoppage, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I feel like I should just record myself saying this same phrase and just play it every week. But they tell a story through every match. They really have done a good job in NXT UK of telling stories in the matches. And this one obviously being that Gradwell was just trying to drag the Ilya Dragunov snap out of him, for want of a better expression, to try and goad him into cracking up. Which is, I'm not sure why you would want to do that to somebody who was actually beating you in the ring. Why you would want them to go too far, but. Say it had built well, and you had Gradwell telling Dragunov he was let his family down and stuff, and then Dragunov nearly hitting the referee and putting back, and then eventually did snap. And she said it was stop after the elbow and knee strikes. But even after the match, you had Gradwell still mocking him and still kind of going, "Oh, well done," and this sort of thing, and Dragunov feeling sad. So I don't know whether we're looking down the line at some sort of tag team that they'll pair them up or make them into some sort of faction. I'm not sure, but again, there's been a lot of quite heavy hitting matches in NXT UK recently, and this was another one. For all the time it lasted, it was hard hitting. So
yeah, do you think? I mean, aside from that idea that you just had the Gradwell and Dragunov tandem, it seems like Gradwell is one of those guys who's just there. He's a competitive guy that they bring in to beat. But maybe as a tag team, maybe there's something there.
Yeah, I mean, because think when NXT UK started back, he was one of the ones that the first week I saw him, I was like, "Ugh, is he still under contract?" Because thinking he doesn't do a lot for me. Now, to be fair, he really has come through and has shown a bit of personality, and they're giving him that option, as you say. Yes, he's still there to be the person that they beat, but he's got that personality that you could put him in the ring, you'll get a decent match, but he can lose in the end, and that's okay. And you need people like that, so I mean that's fine.
Absolutely. So our tag match this week is Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan versus Ashton Smith, Oliver Carter. I think they telegraphed the fact that Williams and Jordan were going to win this match, and they did so. A little bit of underhanded tactics, but that leads us to a match next week. And first, before we get to that, though, anything on the Williams and Jordan tag match?
It's funny, again, Smith and Carter are one of those ones that I go, they're okay. Yeah. But actually, they're good and they work well together, and they do have good, like, proper tag team combos and stuff. Williams is one of those ones, like, we've been calling it for a couple of months, how Williams is starting to be a bit more heelish. And I did think at the very, very start, I was looking back at my notes, that it was actually going to be Jordan who would turn. So it may well be that they both turn. I mean, it could be that Williams tries to do the cheating, and eventually Jordan goes, do you know what, if we want to get ahead here, maybe I'll join you too. And so they both kind of go on unwillingly, he gets dragged into it. But I thought it was a good match, to say again, told a good story, and as you say, built into the match next week with Webster and Andrews, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, and Webster and Andrews, they're former NXT UK Tag Team Champions. So this is Jordan and Williams trying to move up the ranks. They get a win here. You got to think they're positioned for a match with Pretty Deadly down the road. Yeah,
I mean, I could see it happening again, and I could see the storyline again being Kenny Williams does something to cause them to get the win. So although you've got your established team losing, they've got the out because something, as you say, underhand has happened to do it. But I'm a massive fan of Webster and Andrews. Like, I just think they're amazing. But so I'm looking forward to the match because Jordan's all right. He shows a bit more every time I see him. But Kenny Williams is a really good wrestler too. Now that he's back from the injury storyline and stuff, hopefully they can build a bit more behind them. So.
Yeah, you've got me really interested in whether or not we're going to see a Kenny Williams singles push, or we're going to see a Kenny Williams, tag team push with Jordan. I hadn't thought about that particular angle. I think that's a really interesting one. And I should mention, Gary, this whole podcast is powered by the Eastern Observer, and I think you've got your cup over there too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Taste the power. or taste my summer fruits. Juice is what I can taste, but whatever.
Well, our favorite part of the show, the Supernova Sessions, with Tyler Bate as the special guest. I don't know about you, but the fact that he brought a meal, Noam Dar brought a meal for Tyler Bate, and even considered the fact that he was vegan in the process. What a classy host.
That's it. What a generous guy. As I've said before, I've said you and I've said Dale and stuff, that something's going to come from this, and obviously now that, let's say, they're setting up the sort of Heritage Cup rules match with Mastiff coming up. I'm not exactly sure what I think of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm not exactly sure how the character hasn't quite clicked with me yet. I mean, I love him in the ring. He's one of my favorite wrestlers, like, in the last several years. But it's kind of one of these, okay, I know what they're trying to do. And actually, I do think they work quite well, Noam Dar and he off each other. Because one that was kind of like, chilled and laid back. And Dar was trying to do whatever he could to wind him up, and it just wasn't working. So, because I'm growing to become a major Noam Dar fan off the back of all of these, like I really am. It's been brilliant. But it's a good way, it's a good vehicle having that talk show to set up angles and set up matches and stuff and deliver the storylines as they're going through. So it's been good. But as you say, it was very kind of him to give him the broccoli and the leaves, the lettuce leaves or whatever they were. It was very kind.
Well, it was broccoli was the main course, but then, he wanted to have a garnish, for presentation perspective,
True.
So he dumped a bag of spinach all over him, it's common courtesy, So,
Look,
obviously,
was out there. If it had been Popeye was out there and he dropped the spinach, he'd have been in trouble. But
we have, you mentioned it, Dave Mastiff and Tyler Bate this week. the big strong boy versus the big boy, I guess, in this situation. So I think we've probably seen this match before. I can't quite remember, but I'm pretty sure we have. But who do you like in this one?
I'm thinking Tyler Bate. So Dave seems to be positioned at the minute of, as you say, as the big boy that everybody goes, oh, you're kind of credible. But again, when somebody beats them, they go, oh, fair enough. And they're moving up. So I think, say, we'll see Tyler Bate taking it. I was going to say possibly he might take it 2-0, like 2 straight falls. But I think they tend to give everybody a fall somewhere, but I think it would be good to see somebody take 2 straight and make a big statement. So,
well, the last time we saw, I guess not the last time, but when Mastiff was in the tournament, I don't remember who it was, but he knocked somebody out.
Was that Joseph Connors? Was it that?
That might be right. Yeah, that might be right. And if we see that early on in this Bitter Rounds match, then we could be going the whole way to the end, as they try to battle back. So it could be interesting. Those rounds, as you said, I think in the past, they make for really interesting storytelling, and they've done a really nice job with every match. You do always kind of get a read on the match early, though. When you see the first fall, you can kind of see how the rest of the match is going to be laid out. But
no, it does good. You can tell a good story from it, as I say, because obviously it's what I grew up on. But actually, arguably now, I mean, in those days, the round system was good, but now they do tell really great stories through those matches. They've done a super job with it.
Well, speaking of story, I gotta ask you about Isla Dawn. She has lost almost all the matches that I've ever seen her on NXT UK. But on the last week's episode, she got a little vignette, and she's good up there with the Ouija board. Of course, she's the White Witch of NXT. So, do you think we're poised for an Isla Dawn escalation push? What do you think?
I hope so, because she's brilliant. Honestly, she hasn't really had a chance. She's had good matches with people and stuff, but people haven't really had a chance to see her being given a bit of a shine. And she's still really young. But having seen her live a few times and up close, like she is fundamentally just brilliant. Her basic wrestling skills are great, and she's developing more and more. And she has that character, and that character is just her. She, like, for the last 3-4 years that I've seen her, this is the type of character she's been doing. So I do hope so. I mean, it is really interesting that they are, like, over the last month or maybe 5 weeks, there's been a real push of, let's introduce you to 4 or 5 women that are coming in, and let's bring some more women on. Like, they really are focusing a lot on the women's division in NXT UK. But I do hope, I would say that what will happen is you'll have the like of her coming in, and Aaliyah James and Danny Luna, who'll start to get a few wins. They'll not be up near the top just yet, but give it a good 6, 8, 9 months. Some of them will have started to rise up through the ranks a bit more. But yeah, I think we're going to see a bit more from her, rather than just let's give her a wee bit more of a backstory. I think this is going to be a start of a push.
For a 1-hour television show, I think, you and I have talked about this before. The show is really smartly booked.
Yeah.
Back in, the 80s and stuff, they were always working on the next, big monster goon to throw at Hulk Hogan. And now you can read this 6 months in advance. You got Walter and Kaylie Ray who held those belts forever. And they need to build new challengers because they've been through everybody. So, like you said, you're seeing 4 or 5 women that are getting built up. Well, they're getting built up. Maybe one of them takes down Kaylie Ray. Maybe one of them, or maybe they all fall to Kaylie Ray. But they're working on the cycle, which is important. So, speaking of Kaylie Ray, how about that match with Mako Satomura?
I was talking to John Smith before we started back in the green room before we came on, and that's what I was saying to him. I was like, if anybody watches a match, like, it was just unbelievable. It was a very, I had, as you know, I was watching it a bit behind time. I wasn't able to catch it live, and I had seen a comment where somebody said, "Oh, this is a very Japanese style match," and I thought, "Oh, okay, well, how will people get that?" But it was just amazing. Say, hard strikes, kicks, but realistic the whole way through. And we had said at the time, would Mako come in and go over, like just roll over, or would they kind of cement Kaylie's legacy by Kaylie beating her? And obviously she did, but just an absolutely phenomenal match, ending with a gory bomb. A lot of respect from them both. Just superb match, like 17 minutes of takeover worthy match. Just absolutely fantastic.
There was a couple of times on both sides, both Kaylie Ray and Mako, where I thought the match was over. I thought, obviously, you get a big high profile match, you're going to have a bunch of false finishes, but I think there was an overrun. The show went longer than an hour. Yeah. So I was like really convinced several times that this was the end.
Yeah.
And there were a couple of those times where I thought Mako was going to pull it out. So, props to them, because they had me in a situation where I didn't know who was going to win. And it's always the fun part.
And I quite liked as well, they brought attention to the fact of, although it seemed to be like 20 seconds of a loop each time, but they were like, oh, look, there's Piper Niven watching on the screen. And there was like the women all watching somewhere, and Aoife Valkyrie in the background, and everybody watching. And you went, they're making this into a big deal. That no matter what way whoever had won it, it was like, okay, all the women are watching this because this is what they want to go for. And it's like, it made it seem credible. It made it seem important, which raised the profile of the match even more.
The question I have, though, at the end of this whole thing, you have Kaylie Ray and Mako in the middle of the ring. They hug. Is this a face turn for Kaylie Ray? Like, what's going on here? This is out of character for her.
The funny thing is, I would say, so it looked as if it is, like, over the last few weeks, they've almost been setting her up as, not in an arrogant way. Like, for instance, like when I look at Sasha Banks to me should be a heel and not a face. It's very much like, I'm the best, like all that sort of. Whereas where Kaylie Ray's going, no, I'm the best, and everybody goes, oh, you are? Yeah, I could agree with that. Although the interesting thing is, it looks like Aoife Valkyrie, like Aoife, and who is, again, Aoife's amazing. But it looks like she's probably going to be pushing her way, and if she does, the hard thing is, at the minute, Aoife would be a face, and would you have two faces, or does she, because she's doing the old I'm doubting myself gimmick, does she turn, or what happens? But again, the fact that we're probably a couple of months out and trying to fantasy book, what will they do with this girl? Or she could go that way, this one could go this way, is brilliant. The fact that they have all these layers and people, as you say, cycling people around and building people up slowly but surely in their different slots. So it's going to be really interesting to see where they go. But it does look like it's a Kaylie Ray face turn of sorts, definitely.
At least till we see a softer side of her. But I want to main event your segment this week with one of your favorites. We have a mixed tag match on this week's episode of NXT UK. It's Joseph Connors and Ginny, your favorite, versus Piper Niven and Jack Stars.
Jack Stars, I know. It's
your
like Christmas
favorite
has come 9 months early for me. They're both in the one back. As much as it pains me to say so, I can't wait. I'm really looking forward to it. I really am.
Who's taking the fall here?
There's part of me looks at the way they've built it going, they're building it up because Piper Niven's going to win, and that's fine. And then I'm going, well, no, actually, because Jenny and Joseph Connors are really being built up. So I could see something where Piper and Jimmy end up fighting on the outside and Joseph Connor pins Jack Stars or something like that, because that seems to be Jack's role. But again, I'm glad to see him getting involved. He's like the NXT UK's Barry Horowitz. So, I'm glad to see him. It'll be a good match.
That's fair. Well, that's it for NXT UK this week, Gary. Any parting words? Anything you want me to any words you want me to deliver to John Smith later in the show?
So as I say, look, if this builds to like if we come to like a new Worlds Collide thing or something like that, and Devlin's going across to face Escobar, it's like John and I are going to have to go on, I don't know, and play like I'll play him at Madden and he can play me at FIFA or something like that. Then we'll have to have some sort of like battle of the EWP between us or whatever. Like, but we'll get something. We can't help it. Us, we Irish guys. You just mean like when you've got it, you've got it. We can't help it. Like we've got the real
this
champion.
match requires a neutral location. Like we can't do it and you can't do it in North America, and I don't think we can do it in Europe. I think this has got to be a match that takes place in the Dome, Tokyo Dome, or something. We got a neutral location for this huge match between Devlin and Escobar. So we go to Asia, South America, or something.
Yep.
Well, South America.
Definitely.
So, all right, Gary, thank you so much. I'm going to bring in, speaking, I should have been thinking ahead here. I had a natural transition. We're going to talk about the New Japan Cup with Travis now. So, Gary, take care. Thank you, sir.
No
all right, Gary is out. Travis is in. Update those nameplates. Travis, welcome to the Essential Wrestling Podcast.
Thanks for having me, as always. I'm your Al Karl fill-in, so I'm your Ryan Joy fill-in, so I'll do my best.
Well,
it's hard to follow Gary Mehaffy too. Like that's a rough.
I don't get to talk to Gary about NXT UK that much, so it's like I always have lots of questions to throw at him. So
it's like coming in after Goldberg. It's a joke.
Well, you know what? You're no slouch. You know, you're pulling it down. I put up the score sheet here. Trivia you're not great at, but right now, New Japan Cup, we've got 6 people that filled out brackets, and you're at the top. You've picked 9. You've got 9 matches out of the 11, so that's pretty good.
Not bad.
Yeah. So, all right, let's talk about New Japan Cup. I'm going to bring up the left side of the bracket.
Okay.
Obviously, I think the biggest and the probably the biggest upset we have here is the Okada loss in the first round.
Yeah, I mean it's an upset, but it's also not an upset. I mean, if you look at everybody on the left-hand side, I could have saw him maybe losing to Naito as well, but that would have probably been the only other wrestler on the left side of the bracket where I think Okada could take a loss from and still be okay with it. Shingo's no joke. I mean, never open champion for a while and really solid, strong matches and stuff like that. So it's a loss, but it's not like a comedy loss or it's not like a loss to a young lion. So it's an okay loss for Okada to take, but certainly busted mine and everybody else's, other than John Smith's on the bracket. So yeah, big surprise.
And Naito losing in the first round as well. I think that, not too long ago, he was the IWGP double champion, and now he's not even in contention for another championship match. In fact, he was wrestled Bushi 2 weeks ago. Yeah,
I mean that was another one where I didn't see Jeff Cobb coming out of that, but I'm excited about the next round. Like, I'm really happy to see Evil in against Jeff Cobb. They actually have some history. It's been a little while. Back in November of 2018, Evil was in ROH. Jeff Cobb was your TV title champion on an undefeated streak there, and Cobb got the victory in his own home. So they've got a little bit of history, not a ton. They've never run into each other in the G1 or anything like that. But Cobb does have that one singles victory over Evil, so that should be an interesting match with him throwing Evil around, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna bring that bracket back up. If you have Cobb get through and you have the Great O'Khan get through, then you're gonna have an Empire battle there in the second round or third round.
Yeah, you've got Empire and Empire Action. I don't think Cobb's gonna get through. I think Evil's probably gonna have some help from maybe a Dick Toga or something like that to possibly get it done. Evil and O'Khan seems like a great match too. Evil's lucky. He's going to have 2 good matches going into this. I think O'Khan's probably going to come out the victor on that other match there. So that'll be a heck of a card.
That's one of those ones though. O'Khan's fighting Evil or Yano. So, people can take losses to Yano all day long because he cheats. Yano beat Kenny Omega when Kenny Omega was the IWGP Heavyweight Champion in the G1.
He certainly uses all the parts of the ring to his advantage, for sure.
Yeah, yes. And he's loaded up with tons of medical tape.
Yep, he's got plenty.
On the right side of the bracket, we still have a little bit of thinning out to do in the opening round on this side, but Ospreay got through. He's my pick to win the whole thing.
So
got bye. So
So we got Ospreay getting through to Zack Sabre Jr. Those two are very familiar with each other. That Rev Pro title belt that you see Ospreay wear to the ring, he won that off of Zack Sabre after he'd taken a loss initially. So they have a lot of history together. Zack Sabre's got a G1 win over Ospreay in 19. So they're very familiar. That should be a hell of a match. Sonata's probably going to get past Nagata. That Nagata Tsuji match was really good today for an older guy fighting. And then the top part of that bracket is all Bullet Club. So we got Bullet Club and Tanahashi with a couple of other guys sprinkled in there, right? So Finlay and Owens is probably a coin flip. Yoshihashi is probably who you're going to see over Yujiro, but literally any of those four guys could go forward in that. I've got White over Hinari because it makes an interesting match, White versus Tanahashi. Tanahashi could go Final Four, but I think this is Jay White's year. I've got him picked as the winner. I think Jay's going to get over Tanahashi, but I think there's going to be some ghetto nonsense involved in that match to get him there. And if he, for whatever reason, falls, it gives him an opportunity to go back and possibly wrestle Tanahashi for the Never Open title, which is a belt that Jay hasn't held. And with Ibushi burying all of his history with his IC belt, this is another opportunity for Jay to get in the New Japan books. So a lot of opportunities. The bracket's kind of wide open still, and there's a lot of good wrestling to come.
If Jay White doesn't win, who's your number set? Who's your second bet? Who do you think
on that side of the bracket? I think that's Tanahashi walking through the rest of that. I think that's the easiest. No. I think if Jay White doesn't win that side, I think Ospreay goes through, and we've got an Ospreay conversation, probably against Takagi, possibly against Evil. I think Takagi beating Okada makes him my favorite on that side of the bracket now. Okada was my pick to get through. Takagi ended up winning, so I got to go with, the horse that kind of beat you on the rest of that. And Takagi Ospreay is interesting. Takagi Tanahashi is interesting.
Is Takagi Ibushi interesting? Because that's where you ultimately go with this. If that happens.
Right, that's where you had with that. And Takagi was a really good Never Open champion.
Yes, very good.
It could certainly happen. I didn't see the stars aligning as this being a Takagi year, so to speak. But then again, he's a hell of a challenger for Ibushi.
It doesn't feel like a Dominion main event.
No.
So maybe if they have a show in between, you could get there. But
I think there's some really good build-up matches and six-way and tag team matches with Ibushi on the opposite side with Takagi. So I would have no problem there. I also like the idea of somebody from Bullet Club being involved with Ibushi again, so that could be Evil as well. But I don't know. I like Shingo coming out of that side of the bracket now after beating Okada.
The other thing is Tanahashi and Ibushi are tag team partners, right? I mean, so that's kind of a built-in storyline as well. Tanahashi gets the bye in the first round. There's
and you got a little bit of that. You got a little bit of that with Ospreay too, right? Ospreay and Tanahashi tagged together for quite a bit when Ospreay was just coming in. So there's definitely history there with the two of them as well. And Ospreay's got his own new faction and stuff, and Tanahashi's kind of off on his own the way that he's been factionless for most of his career. So that's another interesting match. There's a lot of good wrestling past this first line that we're going to see ready to go, and tons of storyline. So it makes it a really tough one to kind of pontificate on, but most of the results seem pretty exciting as far as what we're going to get to see for wrestling.
Yeah, this tournament's going to get better and better as it goes on. And if you are English speaking person like myself and like Travis, and you can't speak Japanese, well, that's all you've got right now for live viewing of the New Japan Cup. But when we get to the final 2 days, Kevin Kelly will be back in Japan and he will be commentating. So I think those last couple of days are going to be very good.
The thing is, though, the wrestling and the story that's told in the ring for New Japan is so good that even with the Japanese commentary, they alliterate pretty well. So you can kind of piece together the story they're telling, whether you understand the language or not. It's kind of like watching soccer and samba soccer and listen to Brazilian commentators. The emotion of the match and the build of the match is all in their voices anyway. So they do a really good job. I can't understand a word of it, but I know everything that they're saying.
Well, I have picked up a lot of words in Japanese. I know drop kick. I know suplex. These are all Japanese words too. So.
Exactly. Yeah, for 100%. I know Jay White.
Yeah. Okay. So New Japan, of course, we're watching those brackets closely. hoping to stay alive myself. On the MLW side of things, Hammerstone defending his national openweight championship against L.A. Park. And then Leo Rush is extending an invitation. We don't know who, but he's a bit of a belt collector these days. So I think MLW is going to be worth the hour this week.
Yeah, for sure. They pack a lot into that hour. Hammerstone's first actual ring match since coming back from the pandemic. So it'll be interesting to see what shape he's in, knocking the rust off. I don't see him losing this match. I think there's no build to it. There's no reason to pay that off. Leo Rush, it'll be interesting to see who he invites in. He has been an active man in wrestling.
Desperado. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It will be a champion, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be somebody holding the gold. And who knows? It could be Darby Allin.
It probably won't be Jordan Devlin or Santos Escobar.
No, I don't think. I think everybody's safe as far as that rivalry goes.
Yes. On the Ring of Honor side of things, Jay Lethal is getting his ROH World Championship match against Roosh. Gotta be careful because we just talked about Leo Rush. This is Roosh at the 19th anniversary show this end of this month. It'll be on a Friday.
Spelled the same, no relation. Roosh is the real deal. If you haven't had a chance to see Roosh wrestle, Roosh is worth it. Depending on what your TV time is, this is probably noon on Saturday for most folks that are listening to the show. Really nice payoff for an anniversary show. So it's an anniversary show, so they'll probably have some other different funky time. But Jay Lethal is no joke. He's been around ROH since the beginning, and Roosh is a really good champion. So this should be a really good match. If nothing else on the card is any equality at all, which the ROH stuff has been pretty good. It's been worth the hour as well.
Yeah, and I might as well mention it now since we're going kind of like promotion to promotion.
Sure.
Jake St. Patrick, who was on the Daily Wrestling News Show, I think 2 weeks ago, he's wrestling for the CCW Championship tonight on a live wrestling. He's going to be facing El Jefe Santos. So that is on CCW's channel. If you've been following the Daily Wrestling News Show and seeing these interviews, there you go. Jake's got a match. He'll also probably be on Dark tonight.
Jake's a lot of fun. He's going to do well as long as Brian Cage doesn't interfere. That seems like his kryptonite.
Yes, yeah. He has issues with Cage. He has issues with Cage on Dark, and he's going to have issues. And the whole promotion has issues with Cage. So in CCW. So, All right, that is. I think our coverage for New Japan, Ring of Honor, MLW, CCW. I'm going to bring back in John Smith and John DeConnie. I think I have to kick you out to kick them in. And then we're going to talk about Revolution. I can't believe we've gone this far into the show without doing that yet. So stand by, Travis. John. Let's see if I got that right. We won't know until I put these up. Looks good to me. All right, guys. AEW Revolution. First of all, welcome back. I hope you got your groceries, your home's inspected, or whatever you need to do. Before we get to Revolution, we had a pretty big Dynamite last week. We're not going to go through all the matches, but there are two that I want to make sure we touch on. And Travis, we'll go right straight back to you. Shaq was there. It was a good match. You got the win with Jade over Cody and Red Velvet. So
what I said about this match in the comments section at Minutes to Bell Time Facebook was it could have gone a lot worse. And that's the truth. You bring in these people that are outside the wrestling world with zero experience in the ring or anything like that. And there are so many times when it's a joke. We already saw it with Snoop Dogg off the top ropes and some other people coming in to do some stuff. For the story that they told, I think there were two things they were trying to get out of the way. Number one, they were going to try to show Jade Cargill as a star. Mission accomplished, gold star. Jade Cargill could be the women's division inside of a year. She's phenomenal, and she showed everything. And Red Velvet was no slouch either. That bump that Shaq took, he's an international superstar. People know him from all over the place. It brings a whole ton of eyeballs in. One of the most watched shows on their other network is the NBA show that Shaq is on. It gives them a reason to talk about AEW there. So from a viewer standpoint and from a recruitment standpoint, they did everything that they could to maximize the dollars with Shaq. I mean, the bit in the, where he couldn't fit in the ambulance, that was funny too. So took the big bump through the double tables. Was a little bit choreographed. You saw Shaq on the apron there, and then we moved back to the corner, and then he came back and took the bump from Cody. I thought it was okay.
John Smith, I'm going to go to you real quick, and I didn't tee you up for this, but what do you think about them putting that match on first?
It didn't make much sense to me, only because it's what the whole show was built around, and then you gave it to us right off the bat. I felt like they could have kept eyeballs on. I mean, I didn't look at the ratings or anything, and I mean, I don't know if the ratings indicate what I'm saying, but I feel like they could have kept more eyeballs on them had they been hyping it up for the hour and a half leading up to it instead of giving it to us right away.
They do indicate what you said. A lot of people left after the match, which is unfortunate for AEW because it was such a good opportunity to get all these eyeballs. But at the same time, as I'd like to make that criticism, but I also know that they're a very data-driven company, and I have a feeling that they were counting on people coming in for that lead-in. So I don't know. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. If I see them make this kind of weird decision a bunch of times, I'm going to have to get clarification on it. But I give them the benefit of the doubt on this particular run through.
I mean, I think the number at the end was 936, which is pretty good on a go home.
That's the average for the 2 hours. Yes,
Yep.
that was a fantastic number for them. But they had many more in the opening segment.
Yeah, I would agree though, 100% on that, John. They could have certainly dragged us along, and at least maybe done it in the top of the second hour, right? Like you would have brought all the people all the way through there and stuff like that. It was interesting that they went right out of the gates like that.
And they had some interesting storylines on the rest of the show, John DeConnie, including that FTR and Tully Blanchard. Tully Blanchard's return with Horseman title belts and all this stuff. So,
yeah, they did a great. I mean, this is one of the things that I myself, I know Travis mentioned this in the watch along thread, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this way. AEW does such a good job of talking to the fan that's our age, that knows some history. They're not just there to sell T-shirts to 11-year-olds. Tully was coming out for his first match since 1980. I don't even know what. Quite a while. Jim Crockett had just passed, so they come out with he's wearing the 10 pounds of silver, the old that old NWA belt. The FTR have on the old NWA tag belts. It just if you're an old time wrestling fan, it just warms your heart. They're always giving you those little, even if it's just a little nugget, just something that makes you smile. And this
JJ
match,
Dillon too.
Yeah. I had it in my notes to make sure I didn't accidentally call him JoJo Dillon like Jericho used to do. But thank you for that. So we get into the match between FTR and Tully and Jurassic Express, and it's everything you want. There's some, it's a little bit of mayhem with all 6 guys all over inside the ring and out. You got Mako flying all over the place, Jungle Boy doing his thing. It comes down to what you probably guessed it would, a little bit of tomfoolery on the outside. We had a masked figure make a sneak attack on the outside, and it all led up to Tully being the man to hit the spike pile driver on Luchasaurus for the win. And then at the end, the gentleman with the mask comes into the ring slowly, but kind of keeping his distance, unmasks himself, takes off his winter beanie. It's Shawn Spears. So we've got this, we're not quite sure what's going on there, but there's a nice little grouping of 4 gentlemen in the ring. And Arn even comes out one of the entryways. He throws up 4, which he owns the trademark on now. So, a harbinger of things to come, perhaps. But that tickled your old school heart, I imagine.
Yeah. That, like you said, all the nostalgia it needed to, while also the main guys, the FTR and Jurassic Express, were featured. Tully came in, he did the few things he needed to do. He didn't look horrific or anything like that. He was featured well. So, okay, I'm going to shore up on that Dynamite talk there. We're going to go straight to Revolution, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. Guys, Christian is the mystery guy, and I want to know, just give me a thumbs up, thumbs down on what you think of Christian being the guy that was hyped. Travis says thumbs up, 2 thumbs in the middle, and a thumbs up. That's, thumbs in the middle is kind of like a lukewarm reception, I think is how I would describe that. And I think that's kind of how it was received. The problem is that it was hyped, and people thought Lesnar, people thought Cena, people thought Punk, and it was never going to be those guys. It's not the kind of decision that I've seen AEW make. They're going to put their money out for talent that's going to be there every single week, and none of those guys will do that. So to me, then you got to go down to the next tier and see who it is, and nobody in that tier would live up to the hype that they put on it. So that's the problem. Now, Christian as a signee, I think, Travis, that's where the thumbs up comes. If they didn't do all that hype, he's a great person to have on the roster. He is an old-time guy, and they're taking some criticism for that, though.
Absolutely. So I think part of the positive part for me is it doesn't matter who they brought, because expectations were through the roof, right? So if I put where my expectation was on this announcement and stuff like that, and I didn't look at it from the future forward, I'd probably be thumbs in the middle or whatever, right? Because what I hope for versus what's the best money business decision. So if they're going to get value out of their dollars spent, Christian is going to bring everything forward. You want to move your tag team division even further along, you bring in one of the best tag team wrestlers ever. You want to do something with mid-card singles guys that would work in the TNT slot for that belt, Christian's going to be a great guy to be there. Like, just the tutelage that he's going to bring, because he's a generation sort of removed from the Dean Malenkos and the Arn Andersons, and he's a little bit more of a modern era wrestler that can go in there and have a couple of good matches with Matt Hardy, can shore up the tag team division and stuff like that. The thing I like about him is he doesn't feel like the kind of guy who, when they bring him in, like a Miro or a Brody or any of those guys, that you got to put a title on him to make him matter. He can outwork everyone. That was what his t-shirt said, So he's going to be in there. He's going to grind through, and he's going to put on some good matches, and he's not going to put himself in a position where, he can't handle whatever the program is that he's attached to. So, and I think he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder too, because he was obviously in some money talks with WWE, and that didn't come through. So give me some Christian Cage with a chip on his shoulder. And the thing about Christian Cage that's interesting is, for a business guy, he's one of the best in the industry when it comes to wrestlers. He trademarked the Christian name early on, where most of the WWE guys couldn't do that, and he was way ahead of his time when it came to that, as far as, protecting his own persona and stuff like that. So he's a smart person regardless, a good wrestler on top of that. And man, I'm not sure what AEW paid to get him in, but they got the hype from his appearance on Royal Rumble that's going to pay off and cruise him through into this spot. So we'll see what they deliver on.
John Smith, on Thursdays, you and I usually on the Daily Wrestling News Show talk about NXT and Dynamite. And there's been a couple of times where I've come on that show and I've been pretty ticked off about NXT doing false advertising. Is this false advertising? Did you think they overhyped to the point where it got to be false advertising?
I think that would be disrespectful to Christian to call it false advertising. It wasn't so much that, but like you said, it just couldn't live up to the hype. And, it's hard to care about Christian, because Christian's always like the number 2 to Edge. You think Christian, oh, he never made it as far as Edge did. And so it's almost like we're getting great value Edge over on AEW. But it's good for him that he gets to continue his career, and maybe he did this because they didn't want him in the ring so much in WWE, and he wants to be, more active, and that would be cool. But do we really see him winning the world title there or anything? Probably not. So, his value backstage is probably worth more than it is on camera.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Now, the interesting thing is we knew also, and I'm skipping around here a bit, but we also knew that there was a mystery guy in the ladder match. And John DeConnie, as the senior Impact correspondent, Ethan Page, he debuts in the ladder match. Is that something you think is that a big get? Or is that, some people are thinking that's a little flat because they already got this relationship with Impact? So
yeah, he's on the younger side. He certainly can work. So, they didn't go and, blow a lot of smoke about who the last guy in the ladder match was going to be. So I think Ethan Page coming in there, I think it's a perfect spot for him. He's a guy who can come in. I'm certain, knock on wood, short of any injury, he'll spend a lot more time in the ring than Christian Cage will. So I think he's a great. He's not an oh my god yet, but he may turn out to be a lot more entertaining than people who didn't watch Impact. And of course, there are plenty of them. If you don't know him, you're like, all right, who's this guy and why do I care? But I think he'll turn out to be quite entertaining.
Well, here's my thinking right off the bat. You got Ethan Page and Matt Hardy on the same roster. You have two, and Darby Allin too. Those are some really creative folks, and they could do some really interesting things going forward with cinematic, type of matches. So, they're building a little stable of guys that are going to be able to offer an alternative style. And we saw a really good cinematic match on Revolution that we'll get to in a second. But we got to get into brass tacks here. We got to get through this show. So we start with yet another surprise at Revolution. Maki Ito, she comes across the ocean and tags with Britt Baker. They get a win over Thunder Rosa and Rio on the buy-in show. It was a cheap victory. Rebel, used the crutch to get that win. And then later in the show, we had Hikaru Shida defeat Rio Mizunami. Rio, of course, won the tournament to get to that spot. But it was a great match. Lots of false finishes. You thought that could go either way many times, a lot like the Kaylie Ray and Mako Satomura match. But ultimately, Shida comes out on that one. And after that, we have all the heels empty out of the back, and they're beating down on Shida until we get some saves. So now we got a big 6-woman tag match on Dynamite that we need to pick. So Travis, I'll throw it to you. Britt Baker, Maki Ito, and Rebel versus Thunder Rosa, Hikaru Shida, Rio Mizunami. I think this morning you told me the heels.
I'm going to take the opportunists. I don't know if heels is the word that I want to use. I would say the team with the opportunity where they take their shots where they can. So yeah, I'm going to take the Britt Baker, Rebel, Maki Ito. They're better singers. They're better dancers. They're better dentists.
John DeConnie, I mean, we're going to let Travis say these women are not heels.
It's kind of rough to try and pull that off, especially when Baker and Ito gave the inner circle salute at the end of their match at Revolution. So
I thought they were just telling they were number one.
Yeah.
Or 11.
Is that different sign language because she's from Japan? Is that how that works?
That's a different translation. I think it means number 1 or number 11.
So who do you got, John DeConnie?
I will go with the heels as well. But I will call them heels.
John Smith, are we going to make it unanimous?
Yeah, I'd like to see Britt Baker actually pin Shida in this match. Shida hasn't had herself pinned in a while. She can use it, so I'd like to see that go on.
She can use it. John Smith's got to knock her down a bit.
I mean, she's just been so dominant lately, and eventually she's gotta get pinned. So
Britt Baker could use that, to get her title shot for sure.
Yeah.
John Smith, stick with you on Revolution. Miro and Kip Sabian got a win over Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy. Game over.
Yeah, they beat the crap out of him backstage first. They left Orange Cassidy in the back and dragged Chuck Taylor out there. Chuck Taylor's pride told the referee to start the match anyway, and he continued to get beat up until about halfway through the match, which wasn't a long match. It was about 8 minutes, and about halfway through, Orange Cassidy comes out to save the day. He gets all his stuff in, and then here comes what does he even call it now, the accolade? I don't even know.
Game over.
Oh, is it the game over? I thought it was just his catchphrase. Yeah, so, I mean, it went the way we all thought it was going to go, or most of us thought it would go at least.
Yeah.
Good match, though. Good. It was different than everything else that was on the card, so for what it was, it actually worked with the way the flow of the pay-per-view.
Yeah. I think it was nice, though. We talked about it on the post-show that the way they started the match gave us something different on the card, other than just lock up and go type of thing. John DeConnie, you're a Chris Jericho guy. I know Travis is an MJF guy, so it's interesting that you're sitting next to each other today. But they couldn't get the job done at Revolution.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. But the Young Bucks are the Young Bucks, and unfortunately, Jericho and MJF gave them a little extra inspiration by attacking Papa Buck, and it wound up firing. We had you got exactly what you thought you were going to get here. You got a good match, not necessarily on par with the Bucks and FTR or the Bucks and Omega and Hangman, but you got a good match. You had the Bucks. I'm not sure if there was a reason for it, if there was a date involved or whatever, but they gave a little tip of the cap to the Motor City Machine Guns when they hit Made in Detroit early on in the match. You had Matt Jackson actually block a Judas Effect. That was the first time we've ever seen that. He blocked the Judas Effect with a super kick. You had a botched Meltzer driver early on that led to the Walls of Jericho at separate times on both of the Jackson brothers. But in the end, you had Floyd come into play, and for a moment, I had a kind of, ooh, could this really be happening? Because Floyd was planted directly into Matt's spine, and then MJF hit the heat seeker, but he only got a 2 out of it. And eventually we would get a BTE trigger that MJF just broke up the 2 count. And he found himself in maybe the first ever that I can remember actual slobber knocker. He walked into a super kick party that had him drooling like one of Pavlov's dogs before it was all over. And then eventually he would roll out of the ring and they would hit the Meltzer driver on Jericho for the win and retain those tag team titles.
One of the best calls of the night. That's an actual slobber knocker. You invoked earlier in your description there. You invoked the name of our Lord and God, Dave Meltzer. How many stars do you give this match?
I'd give it 4, because it certainly wasn't a bad match. It certainly wasn't a 5, but I'd give it above average.
Okay.
Maybe 3
all right.
and a
Well,
half.
The as good as this match was, Travis, we had the Battle Royal that determined the Bucks' next challengers, and I'm thinking by the time all is said and done, Pac and Phoenix might be able to top of the stars with the Bucks. What do you think?
Yeah, so the MJF Jericho versus Bucks is a tough follow when you go through that roster of matches they've had. I mean, those were tag team matches that were on the list of top tag matches for the year, right? So you've got a lot of work to do stacked against it. However, Pac and Phoenix a little more in line with the style, a little less heelish stuff. I mean, Jericho and MJF are going to wrestle classic heel style, right up into the point where Jericho couldn't hit the Judas Effect and hit Wardlow. So that was a big mistake by Christopher, but we'll talk about that a little more probably on the War Council on Wednesday. Pac and Phoenix, yeah, let's see what they can do against the Young Bucks. They certainly had a pretty nice time at the Casino Battle Royale where they came in the place. So, Santana and Ortiz had to go a little bit earlier. That was my pick to win that whole thing. But they look good. I mean, Pac is phenomenal. Phoenix is phenomenal. You got 2 individual wrestlers that are great. Obviously not with the same amount of tag team experience that Matt and Nick have, but there's very few teams in the planet that do have as much tag team experience as the 2 of them together at this point. They were, tagging at 5 years old or whatever. So should be an interesting match. I'm excited to see this. I think this one could be a 5-star for sure. We could have tables and ladders and all kinds of nonsense involved, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, the Young Bucks in the last 3 years have had an Escalera de la Muerta against the Lucha Bros. They had that killer match with Hangman and Adam Page and Kenny Omega last year's Revolution, and then they had the FTR match at Full Gear this past year. So it's been a crazy set of matches they had. But Pac and Phoenix is another really compelling match. But before we get there, we have Matt Jackson versus Phoenix on Dynamite this week. And John Smith, I'm going to go straight to you with this. Who do you think has got this match?
I got Phoenix. I got Phoenix. Matt Jackson's a tag team specialist.
Okay. John DeConnie?
Yeah, that's exactly my thinking. I think Phoenix is just too good to lose to one half of a tag team guy.
Travis, been a long time since we've seen a Matt Jackson singles match.
God, I really want to go contrarian when you two guys go chalky like that, but I have a hard time with Ray and how well he did in Attorney and the Kenny Omega matches and stuff like that. And Matt Jackson, gosh, I can't even create a scenario where I can see him winning this one. So yeah, I'm going to take Phoenix as well.
All right, well, sticking with this whole tag situation that we had on the show, you alluded to it, Travis, that we have the Inner Circle War Council on Dynamite. I want a show of hands. How many people think Jericho is going to get kicked out of the Inner Circle this week?
This week?
No? People are saying
this week.
we've been waiting a long time. If it's not now, then when? The period was at the end of the story. It was a pay-per-view. When will it be?
The seed's been planted for a while. It's about to sprout tomorrow, and then it'll bloom in the next few weeks.
Okay, and will Sammy Guevara play a role?
I don't think so. I think he's going to end up being just like by himself off to the side eventually as a face.
I think it's interesting. That's an interesting conversation. It could be him and Jericho going to the good guy side of things, given that he obviously didn't go to Impact, and we got the pleasure of Black Taurus coming in his space. So I don't know. We haven't seen Sammy on TV, so maybe he's being punished for his theatrics and not going back and forth or whatever. His vlog has certainly alluded to the internet about being right all the time, but it is compelling. I could see Sammy doing his own thing too, or not trusting Chris either. Which, hey, that could be a decent, couple week program as well. Just kind of the two of them sparring off. So
the only reason why I don't say Jericho out this week is that I think it's almost you're missing out if it doesn't end with Jericho versus MJF for control of the Inner Circle.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yep.
It's too sweet of a storyline to just blow off 1 week, isn't it? Like, and especially if some of the people miss the pay-per-view, like coming in, like you got to tell the story a little bit more and they'll drag it, right?
They don't do anything quick, so you're probably right about that. John DeConti, Adam Page and Matt Hardy in the big money match. Matt Hardy, he's without his money for Q1.
Yes, he is not a happy man. The great thing about Matt Hardy is he may not, be jumping out of the sky quite as often as he used to, but God, you got to love the older wrestlers and how they just bring the psychology to the match. I mean, he was taking a page out of Pete Dunne's handbook early on in this match with all the joint manipulation and just working that hand and shoulder that he know leads to the buckshot lariat. He had Private Party, popping up on the apron to try and help him out because, after all, he's a heel, got to do heel stuff. But in the end, what do we have here? We had the Dark Order finally clears Private Party out, so that it comes down to just Hardy and Hangman. And Hangman gets tossed out of the ring. Dark Order catches him, pops him right back up on the ring while Matt's not paying attention because he thinks he's down on the floor. And by the time he turns around, he runs right into a buckshot lariat for the win. Hangman Page collects the Q1 earnings from Big Money Matt and celebrates with the Dark Order afterwards with some frosty beverages.
Now we could spend a long time talking about whether or not Hangman Page is going to join the Dark Order this week too. So I'm going to put that conversation on the back burner in the interest of time. But this week on Revolution, we also had the Face of the Revolution ladder match, which we alluded to earlier. Ethan Page made his AEW debut. He is a signed talent now, but he did not get the win. Scorpio Sky got the win here, and he is going to get a TNT championship match against Darby Allin. Darby Allin also busy on this night. They had a killer cinematic match, him and Sting against Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. Went about 14 minutes, but it was very, very well done. High quality production value. In retrospect, they might have wanted to close the show with that. It was so good, and the way it ended and everything, and especially the way the actual show ended. But anyway, tomorrow, Darby Allin versus Scorpio Sky. We're wasting no time to get to this TNT Championship match. Darby Allin's going to be nursing injuries because he fell 3 stories in the cinematic match. Scorpio Sky is coming off a ladder match, so he's not exactly coming in healthy either, but probably more healthy than Darby in storyline. So, Travis, I'm going to go to you first because this morning on the Daily Wrestling News Show, you said you think title change.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Scorpio Sky here, which isn't it will go down as a snoozer title run for Darby Allin and TNT, but I think we're gonna see some people get involved to help out Scorpio Sky. I would not be surprised if we saw his nemesis previously, Sean Spears, maybe getting involved, and that's our fourth horseman possibly. So,
and you're saying get involved in favor of Sky.
I am.
John DeConnie, what do you think about this title match?
I agree with Travis to a degree. I didn't even think of Spears getting involved and Scorpio perhaps being one of the new horsemen or anything like that. But I just think that you had Scorpio Sky acting kind of heelish on commentary last week leading into the ladder match. He wins this big ladder match. He's already had a shot at the TNT title once during one of Cody's reigns. I think if you don't give it to him here, he gets lost in the mid card. So I think even though I would not have guessed earlier on that Darby's run would have ended quickly, but I do think they put it on Scorpio Sky here.
John Smith, are you a third vote for Scorpio Sky?
I'm kind of 50-50, but I'm going to go with Scorpio Sky because I want to see that title not get hot potatoed, but, I'd like to see that title change hands more often because we don't ever see any world title changes, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with long world title reigns, but I'd like to see a secondary title, bounce around a lot. Give some guys something to put on their resumes,
I'd like to see the title defended. That's my first and foremost. I mean, I agree with you. It'd be nice to see the title, like you said, build people's resumes and whatnot. But Darby Allin needs to have some defenses if he's going to have any title reign to look back on. I kind of agree with you guys. I'm going to pick Darby here because I do think that he's kind of the face of the company. They're making a lot of face of TNT. They're making a lot of big deal about that. And he kind of off a big end. So I'm going to give it to him. But Smith, tell us about
turtles
because I missed it.
I like turtles.
All right, Smith, tell us about the Sparkler match.
Oh, we're at that already, huh? Yeah, we. I mean, talk about not living up to the hype. I think you advertise an exploding ring, and then at the end of this match, we end up getting a couple of fireworks. I mean, the match itself was, I'd say, a C plus, B minus, just an average kind of for a death match, for a barbed wire. Like, we didn't have any severe cuts, and there was nothing. Nobody was lit on fire.
Your expectations are very high.
Moxley got hit, smashed through a board full of barbed wire, and he came out of it, and his back wasn't bloody at all. So what was this barbed wire even like? I've never seen a death match live, so I was expecting a little bit more. But these two guys can go. Their chemistry is great. I love the story they were telling. It just wasn't visually what I was expecting. And then at the end, after Moxley loses the match with the help of the Good Brothers, by the way, he's the first person to ever kick out of the one-winged angel, right? In all across the globe, I think, which I think is nothing to sneeze at. But he gets handcuffed, left in the ring to blow up on his own. Eddie Kingston comes down, lays on top of him to save him, and then nothing happens. And then Eddie Kingston is selling the problem with the after the show little promo Moxley did was they played it off like Kenny Omega's a moron and can't build it. But then how does that explain Eddie Kingston laying on top of Moxley for 5 minutes like he got blown up too?
Yeah, they've got some work to do to tighten up that portion of the storyline now. But in any case, Eddie Kingston's a hero here, right? He didn't know the thing was going to be a dud, so he threw himself on top of Moxley to save him. So Eddie Kingston, whether we see a full face turn out of this, I don't know, but clearly building some character in this situation. So I liked the match a little bit more than you did. I'm going to give him more credit on that. But the end result is what everybody's going to walk away remembering, unfortunately. So hopefully they can recover and get something out of this, because I think the storyline is good still. Let's see. James says Tony Khan probably put a dud in the barbed wire because he was worried Kenny and John might die. He's right about that.
I'd like to see Moxley build a death match, and then we have death match 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Well, this would be a threesome, right? Because when they had the unsanctioned match, so that was kind of what we were talking about before. They could go a third combat style match, and that's a great idea, John. Let Moxley build the arena. It'll be a little bit different. I'm positive of Pretty Kenny and the bandsaws in the back with the Good Brothers, doing some stuff. It's a whole different level.
Well, they brought in all these creative geniuses, Ethan Page, and Matt Hardy and Darby Allin. Maybe they can help work a match that'll be a little safer too. But before we move off of Revolution, I do want to take an opportunity to brag. I went 7-1, guys. So the only match I missed was Scorpio Sky. So got my 15 points here. That's it. That's all.
Big day.
Well done.
Thank you.
Ryan joined everyone to pass up a chance to brag.
No, humbly.
Well, can't.
Eddie Kingston with that battle royal, right?
If I got those points back, John, I would be very close to winning.
So I know you're going to send me off and AEW's done. There's just too many rants that I want to go on. The Ethan Page signing that seems a little bit stale because he's with Impact and they're doing the sharing and stuff like that. Keep in mind, any of the talent that you see signed amongst these promotions that are working together is also like playing Risk with talent that doesn't go to WWE, right?
Yeah.
So you're signing a good quality young talent guy too. And for as much criticism as AEW's gotten from bringing guys from WWE over, there's been a whole lot of WWE guys that have been released, and they've been really, really selective about who they've brought over and what they've done with those people. And there's a lot of times when they bring them over to build the foundation for the younger guys to move up. I know we're seeing belts on 3 of the EVPs right now, and Cody obviously had his TNT run, right? But I think this is all to build for the future. And if you look at some of these signings and stuff like that, that's what it is. They didn't put Miro into an immediate program. Brody and FTR had their shots, but you got to kind of build them up a little bit. So the Ethan Page signing, the Cesar Bononi came from WWE as well. Obviously not as big of a name or a signing and things like that. But the guys that they bring have been selective, and I think they're getting a good value out of it. Tony Khan's playing a little bit of Billy Bean baseball, because if they didn't take the Ethan Page, I bet you WWE would have been interested in him because he's got great work rate.
Some of these guys that they're bringing in are also guys that own gyms or training facilities, right? Ethan Page owns a promotion up in Canada. Sean Spears and Tyler Breeze run a training facility down in Florida. And another one of the people they just hired does too. So
yeah, they're building their foundational people with people that are building foundations too, right? So they don't have NXT where the development talent is, but if they can build that in the underground version, kind of old school OVW style that WWE did, then we'll start seeing these people pop up, and obviously Dark gives them the opportunity to do that as well. So
yep. Did you have a second rant?
That was it.
Okay. Well, sir, thank you. We are going to send you on your way. We have a lot of work to get done here in the next 37 minutes. So thank you, Travis.
Fun. Thanks a lot, guys. Right. Have a good night. Yep.
All right. See ya.
See ya.
Okay, he's gone. All right, guys. We are going to have to do a sprint to get through by the end of 2 hours. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to flip over to SmackDown. Not going to waste any time. John Smith, tell us about the Street Profits and their dealings with King Corbin and Sami Zayn.
Well, it was supposed to be a tag team match, and then it was actually broken down into 2 individual matches, and Sami Zayn didn't know anything about this. But Corbin said it's cool, so whatever. But Sami Zayn accused Corbin of being in cahoots with the Profits, like they had something going on. But that was not the case. Corbin was able to take out Montez Ford pretty quickly with the help of Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
But then Dawkins, in a little bit longer of a match, went ahead and beat Sammy, and he was a little PO'd that Corbin didn't help him the same way that he helped Corbin.
Yeah, so Fastlane, WrestleMania, where's this headed, do you think? You think it's Corbin versus Sammy, or you think they'll get on the same page?
It doesn't really make sense what they're doing. I don't know where they're going with this. Usually I have an idea. I don't know what the hell's going on because they don't really go together, you know?
Speaking of things that don't make a whole lot of sense, Dominic Mysterio got a win over Chad Gable in 3 minutes and 3 seconds. I guess we're doing Mysterios versus Alpha Academy at some point. So there you have that. John DeConnie, Bianca Belair gets a win over Shayna Baszler.
Yes, indeed. She was in the Kirifuda clutch maybe for just a half a second, and she just absolutely powered out of it to yank Shayna up onto her shoulders and hit the kiss of death for the win. But the bigger story to some degree was Reginald outside getting involved with Nia and Bianca. Nia charged Reggie after Bianca tossed Reggie at his feet, but she wound up hitting Sasha instead. Later in the night, Reggie tries to apologize to Sasha at her locker room. Sasha's having none of it. He's, a man without a country just walking around, and now Shayna bumps into him, and Shayna just felt like beating somebody up, so his time was almost up. But Nia decided to save him because apparently she's got a little crush.
Reggie's been all over the place. Reggie bounced from Carmella to Sasha. Sasha really rejected him quickly, but yeah, Nia Jax has a soft spot for him. So, this is not the last time we'll talk about poor Reggie on this show today, but Cesaro gets a big win over Murphy, 3 minutes, 7 seconds. The question I have, guys, though, clearly we're taking a slow build to Cesaro versus Rollins. Do we think this is a Mania match, or do we think this is Fastlane?
I hope it's Mania. I'd love to see Cesaro get that kind of exposure, especially with someone with as much gravitas as Rollins.
John Smith, do you think that if it's Cesaro versus Rollins at Mania, does Cesaro get the biggest win of his career at Mania?
I would think so. I would hope so, and I would think so because I don't think it makes sense to do the match otherwise. Seth Rollins doesn't need that win under his belt. Seth Rollins with his resume, beating Cesaro with his way less resume doesn't do anything for Seth Rollins. So, that's unless there was some sort of crazy, interference in that match where there was a debut of someone and it cost Cesaro if they did something that way where Rollins got the win, I could accept it, but otherwise, no.
Yeah. Finally, a couple other points on SmackDown. Apollo Crews has a new character. He is a Nigerian prince. He's been working on that the last couple of weeks, and that's coming through. He's put out a challenge to Big E. He says Big E will give him a title match when Big E returns this week. No confirmation of that, no match signed, but that's probably going to be an Intercontinental title match that we get in the very near future. But John DeConnie, the main event of SmackDown was Daniel Bryan versus Jey Uso inside a steel cage. If Daniel Bryan wins, he gets a match with Roman Reigns at Fastlane.
Yes, and because he was very interested in the match, we had the head of the table with a nice comfy seat right at the base of the ramp watching the proceedings the whole time. And this was not a walkover. Daniel Bryan is he's been sucker punched by Uso, sucker super kicked by Uso. So I almost thought it might be a walkover. It certainly was not that. This was main event Jey Uso at his best. This was a legit back and forth between two excellent workers. Scaling up the cage, Samoan drop off the top turnbuckle. There was a lot of could go either way in this match. But in the end, Daniel Bryan locked in the yes lock, Jay got to the ropes, but because it's a cage match, there is no rope break, and Bryan just yanked back further and harder, and Jay was forced to tap. So Daniel Bryan has a chance to mess up the WrestleMania main event by taking the Universal Championship at Fastlane.
And now, was it important for Corey Graves to stand in the middle of the ring before the match and explain us the rules of a cage match? Make a big production out of explaining the rules of a cage match. Was that important?
It was absolutely vital because they were they were long on time. They had too much time. They needed to kill.
I think you're right about that. So, guys, thumbs up, thumbs down. Any chance that Daniel Bryan wins at Fastlane? 3 thumbs down. Very good.
I do think we'll get some kind of screwy ending, though, because I think this is how Edge wins the Universal Championship, is that we get some kind of screw job ending here at Fastlane, and we get a triple threat at WrestleMania.
Well, you heard it here first, guys. You heard it here first. Monday Night Raw. We're switching over, and John Smith, Bobby Lashley, he gets his first title defense.
Lashley.
I'll never music and everything. It's great.
Yeah, I mean his music's the same, but the intro to his music with the lightning and the little video compilation, unbelievable. And it just shows you that they're all in on him as much as I am, because they don't give you pyro like that, and they don't give you this computerized introduction like that unless they're gonna dump money in you into the long run. And we all knew that he was gonna beat the Miz, but he wasn't giving that belt back to the Miz that quickly, and it was a much longer, more respectable match for the Miz than he had last week. So you got to give that to him a little bit. But Bobby does have the entrance of a god. I was saying to Al yesterday when I was watching the show that I wish that Bobby would go back to like his UFC style shorts. The short shorts, not the trunks that Brock Lesnar used to wear or anything like that, or Austin, but the short ones, because he's just so muscular everywhere, and those black pants make him look like he's standing on 2 triangles. But that's the only bad thing that I'll say about Bobby Lashley, because I love everything about him, and this match went the way it should have went, and I'm fine with it.
Yep. 9 minutes. It was probably the longest. It's probably more than all the other Bobby Lashley matches combined. Hurt Lock submission for the win over the Miz. I guess we got the Miz out of the way. So now Drew McIntyre says he is the only viable contender for that WWE championship, the only one that makes sense. He beat everybody in the Elimination Chamber, and then Bobby Lashley came down, sabotaged him so that the Miz would be the guy that Lashley had to face for the championship. John Smith, I think back to you, but John DeConnie, if this was the one you signed up for, let me know. Sheamus and Drew McIntyre, they have a match. Goes to referee.
Yeah, no, that's me. That's this guy right here who has 2 thumbs and loves talking about Sheamus. This guy. This match was way more brutal than the match they put on last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? I never remember anymore. We watched so much wrestling. Yesterday feels like 2 weeks ago, and 2 weeks ago feels like yesterday. But the kendo sticks, chairs, they superplexes off the top rope that we're not really accustomed to seeing from guys this size. If you look on Instagram, you can see both their backs were torn apart, more so than it almost looked like they had went through a death match or something. But the end of it ended in a no contest or a double count out, if you want to call it that, but I don't think the ref counted. It was just they both had the steel steps and they ran at each other and bonked steps, and that was that.
Yep, referee stop. That's exactly how we lost our hair versus hair match, I think, as we've talked about in the past. Double pin.
Exactly. Yeah, so it looks like these two are on a crash course for WrestleMania, and either the two of them will be in a triple threat with Bobby Lashley, or they'll be on their own. But I think these guys this is going to be going all the way until WrestleMania.
Okay. Well, on the subject of WrestleMania and title implications and things like that, we got a bunch of stuff lined up for next week's Raw, and that is not typical. Usually Raw, you don't know what's going to happen until about 5 minutes into the show, but not the case here. Xavier Woods got a win over Shelton Benjamin, 339 on this show, but that's a precursor to the tag team title match that the New Day has with the Hurt Business next week. So there you can see the Hurt Business on the graphic there with their nice suits and their titles. John DeConnie, are they going to keep those titles?
And this is really a coin flip for me. I'm leaning that they'll keep them, but the fact that they rushed to this almost tells me it might go the other way. I'm going to pick the Hurt Business, but I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see a title swap.
John Smith, what do you say?
I'm a little more confident. I like the Hurt Business to win this one, and they're draped in gold, and they're going to be for a while, I think.
Well, I'll make it unanimous because I think business is booming, as they say. Also, set up for next week, Riddle is going to defend the United States Championship against Mustafa Ali. He got a win over Slapjack on Raw last night. John Smith, what is it? Slapjack sponsored by who?
Slapjack sponsored by Popeye's Chicken Sandwich.
There you go.
No, presented by Popeye's Chicken Sandwich. Sorry.
Well, anyway, Slapjack's in the rear view. Ali is coming up. Mustafa Ali, I think my graphic here says he's 1-2. Riddle 7-3. That's our match next week. John Smith, who is going to walk away with the United States Championship?
It stays on Riddle. I don't know how the match is going to end because I think this is just going to keep going.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've had this build, John DeConnie, of Kofi and Ali. Are they trying to get to a position where they can raise the stakes in that match? Eventually, a Kofi and Ali match with maybe the United States Championship on the line.
That would make sense now that you bring it up, but my feeling all along was that the Riddle gets the buyback for losing to Ali in that out of nowhere match from a week or two ago.
Yeah, I can see Riddle dropping the belt so quick. I think that would be rough on his title reign.
Yeah.
John DeConnie, we got 2 matches left to talk about. I'm going to do the honors on the Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. They got a win over Naomi and Lana. Nia Jax powerbomb. Reggie was there with Nia and Shayna, as we talked about before. 7.5 minute match, but Nia got the win there. But tell us about AJ Styles beating Randy Orton in the main event.
Yeah, so we had AJ backstage earlier in the evening, kind of mocking the whole Randy issue with Alexa and the Fiend. This led to Randy, interrupting and saying, you think it's funny what's going on here? And AJ said, no, quite frankly, I think it makes you look weak. So that led to a main event match where the two of them, beat the hell out of each other for a little while. You had AJ working on kind of setting up Randy's left leg to get ready for the calf crusher. When he finally rolled into it, Orton just kind of sat down on it and a quite ingenious block to it. And Randy was really getting going. He hit his draping DDT and he's setting, he's feeling it. He's hearing the voices. He's getting ready for his RKO. And little Miss Bliss shows up on the Titantron, and she's got a jack in the box that she stops short of popping all the way open, tells him not yet. And then she disappears and just, giggles a little bit. And once again, we get Randy choking on some black sputum. And that's enough of a distraction for a phenomenal forearm to end this match in the favor of AJ Styles.
AJ's another one of those guys who doesn't really have a WrestleMania program. So I refuse to believe he won't be on the card, especially when it's 2 nights. And he got a win over Randy Orton here. I don't feel like this is a long-term program, him and Randy Orton. So I think he'll be pivoting onto something else, but I'm not sure what that is yet. So
I was looking over the roster real quickly last night, and I think it makes a lot of sense with AJ Styles versus Keith Lee might happen at WrestleMania.
Oh, that's a nice idea. I
I hate that a bit.
There is one angle on the show, and I don't really want to dwell on the angle itself too much because it was a little bit tough to watch. The Braun Strowman and Shane McMahon stuff. So I guess to boil it down, there's an issue here. There's a personal issue between Braun and Shane. We've been talking about it in pre-production and everything. Is it going to be Shane McMahon versus Braun at WrestleMania, or is it going to be Braun versus Shane's advocate in the form of some other huge man? I'll throw that to John Smith.
I think it's going to be Shane versus Braun at WrestleMania because of Shane's ego.
John DeConnie, almost Dabakato.
I think the first thing that jumped to my head when this started a couple of weeks ago, when Shane started kind of, low key insulting Braun without coming right out and saying it, I thought it would lead to Dabakato. All I can say is if it doesn't, that will disgust me on the level of John Smith's disgust with Cody most weeks after Dynamite, because that will be completely self-serving by Shane. We do not need to see an almost 50-year-old Shane jump off of anything, and stay away from that pirate ship, because I still think there's a way to get Kevin Owens on the WrestleMania card. He's the man who gets to jump off the pirate ship, damn it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Okay, so it's main event time, and unfortunately we don't leave a lot of minutes left for the main event, but we're going to rip through Impact Sacrifice. Let me first tell you about the points. That's the standings. Here's the overall standings. Sacrifice. We get 5 points for the Impact title match, 3 points for all other title matches, 1 point for non-title matches, interpromotional matches, 2 points. Perfect. Pay-per-view is 6 points. By the way, there's a lot of points at stake here because you get 5 points for the title match, and all the matches so far are title matches. So 5 points for the big belt, 3 points for all the others. If we're split on this, there's going to be a lot of ground to make up here. So
and it's going to be 6 for the tag because that's interpromotional.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. So first things first, X Division Championship. It's TJP versus Ace Austin. On Impact tonight, it's going to be Chris Bay versus Ace Austin. And then at the end of the show on Saturday, it'll be Ace Austin versus TJP for the X Division Championship. John DeConnie, you are the senior Impact correspondent. Why don't you kick us off? Tell us who you think's got both of these matches.
All right, I see Austin beating Bay tonight because you want him on a hot streak going into a title match. And then I don't feel as confident, but I'm going to say Ace Austin takes the title from TJP this weekend.
I'm surprised by that based on conversations that we've had in the past. But John DeConnie has gone on the record saying that this is the year of Ace Austin. Do you think he wins the X Division Championship?
I do. I have him winning both matches this week. So,
okay.
Yep.
I am with you guys. I think Ace Austin's gonna take this one. You brought up the interpromotional match, Good Brothers and Finn Juice. They got a win over Reno Scum and Triple XL on last week's show. We have a contract signing tomorrow between the Good Brothers and Finn Juice for their match. I'm sorry, it's tonight. You're right. It's like happening in 15 minutes. Good Brothers and Finn Juice contract signing tonight. They have their match this weekend. John Smith, new champs?
No new champs. Good Brothers take it.
John DeConnie.
Yeah, I say the Good Brothers retain.
Me too. Anybody going through a table during the contract signing? Anybody getting shot? It's Impact. Anything can happen.
Maybe a broken liquor bottle.
Eddie Edwards, he got a win over Brian Myers via DQ. No match for Impact Sacrifice this weekend, but we are a few matches short, so they may weasel them onto the card somehow. I assume that they will. Cardona was the referee there, and he called for the DQ on Brian Myers. Deonna Purrazzo defeated both Jordan Grace and Kiera Hogan on the show last week. That's a precursor to 2 matches on the show this weekend. Jordan Grace and Jazz versus Kiera Hogan and Fire and Flava. Kiera Hogan and Tasha Steelz, they are Fire and Flava. John DeConnie.
I would love to be wrong on this one, but if they didn't beat him the first time, why would they beat him now? I think Fire and Flavor retain.
Yeah, John Smith, do you see a tag team title change here?
Yeah, it's Fire and Flavor versus who again? I'm sorry.
Jordan Grace and Jazz.
You know what? I'm going to go with Jordan Grace and Jazz.
Oh, interesting. I'm going to say the champs retain here. I don't think Fire and Flavor are giving up those belts yet. But Deonna Purrazzo, she's defending the Knockouts Championship against ODB. This kind of came out of nowhere. ODB doesn't even have a win-loss record, really, so to speak of. She's 1-0. John Smith, I'll start with you this time. Does Deonna Purrazzo retain here, or does she drop the belt to one of the TNA legends?
Jersey strong, man. I got Deonna Purrazzo taking this with probably a lot of help.
Okay. John DeConnie?
Yeah, I have Deonna retaining. I think this one's purely a resume builder.
Yes, totally agree. As does Al Karl, by the way. Al has picked Deonna Purrazzo, Fire and Flavor, the Good Brothers, and Ace Austin so far. On Impact last week, Tennille Dashwood got a win over Havoc using the Spotlight kick. Drama is continuing between Rohit and James Storm. This week, we have a Rohit and Shera versus James Storm and Chris Sabin. I think this is the first time we're putting Shera in the ring. John DeConnie, is this a win for the former Desi Hit Squad?
Yeah, this is his first in-ring action since his return here, so why not? Quite frankly, there's not a lot on the line in this match, so why not give it to the Hit Squad?
Yeah, I would agree with that. John Smith?
Yeah, it's hard to argue with. I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way, but I'll go with Rohit and Shera.
Yeah. Now we continue to have issues between Sami Callihan and Trey. Again, no match for Sacrifice scheduled, but they still have room on the card, so there could be an opportunity for them to build that on tonight's Go Home show. But the main event at Sacrifice this weekend is Moose versus Rich Swann. It is an Impact World Championship match. Rich Swann defending. John DeConnie, you are the senior Impact correspondent. Are we seeing a world title change this Saturday?
I wish I had some inside info or a better feel for this whole thing. It's been building for so long. I don't see how they don't put Moose over here, so I'm going to go with a title change. Moose and new.
John Smith, the Rebellion pay-per-view has an Omega sign on the pay-per-view graphic. Are we going to see Moose versus Omega, Swan versus Omega, title for title? What's going on here?
I don't know if they're going to go title for title. I mean, maybe they will. I see Moose winning this though, and I think it's been too long. Almost the same way I felt about Bobby Lashley. Is it's been too long for them to get that title on Moose, and he's been carrying around that fake championship for so long. And I realize now it's legitimized, but I think it's gonna just be combined with that TNA or with that Impact title, and he's gonna be maybe he'll hold up both belts, but I think they'll just have one champ again. I don't think we need two world champions.
Yeah, this is probably a consolidation here, but I agree. Moose, I think, is the win here. It's been a long time coming. He's been a beast. Last year, he had more wins than anybody else on the entire Impact roster. He hardly lost. He lost to. Here's one for you. He lost to Black Taurus early in the year last year, and after that, he didn't lose much of anything at all. So, I'm going to give the W to Moose, who also beat EC3 last year, if we all recall. That was a big feud that he got through. So Moose, we all agree he'll be Impact World Champion next week. So, and with that, we have gotten through the primary content of the show. Guys, anything else on Impact before I move off?
I think we put a bow on it.
No, I was just going to say before, imagine bouncing from Carmella to Sasha and landing on big old 69.
He was, he was looking for someone who cared. So
It's like at the end of the night at the club when you try to get with all the hot ones and then you end up with the last one there.
And then the lights come on.
on to the giveaway. The Jim Campbell Nightheart giveaway. Folks, we have actually already reached the 200 subscriber limit. So you're no longer eligible to get it. But if you've been waiting patiently, we are going to be announcing the winner on next week's episode when Karl is back. So I will issue a pre-congratulations to whomever comes away with that win and that awesome piece of merchandise. And also, the Primetime Rundown, powered by StreamYard with Joey Jarzenka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca, is airing 6 p.m. each Friday. They take you through the world of sports. For more information, please go to theeasternobserver.com. The show airs on the Eastern Observer. The Daily Wrestling News Show. That's the show I always host. That is Monday through Thursday at 10 a.m. You can also catch it on demand anywhere you listen or watch podcasts. Special note, I'm going to be on vacation next week, so the hosts and I have all pre-recorded episodes that are reliving our favorite WrestleManias. Next week, you're going to get 4, 18, 24, 6, and 36. All of those next week on the Daily Wrestling News Show. So stay tuned for that. And also, yesterday I had a good interview with Nelia Cuomo-Costa from Coastal Championship Wrestling down here in Florida. Great insight into the world of independent wrestling and regional wrestling in Florida. So check that out. Let's see. On to the Body Slam Brigade newsletter. This is the newsletter that I write each and every week. It goes out to 4,000 people. I write it. It's free. Sign up at bodyslambrigade.com. Every Thursday on the Eastern Observer, that's easternobserver.com, Karl is putting out an article of the World Cup of Wrestling. He's written this whole thing out, planned it out over multiple weeks. Go on there, read all about it, see who wins the World Cup of Wrestling. And this one, ladies and gentlemen, or should I say just ladies, this one is for the ladies. If you are upset with the whole process of putting on your eyelashes, let me tell you about these new magnetic lashes that Al's wife is now proudly selling. Take a look at the picture of her. As you can see, they look just like the eyelashes you put on, but with a magnetic eyeliner and 10 tiny magnets on the actual lash. The process is simplified and hassle-free. Join Steph's Lovely Lashes on Facebook for more details on these amazing Tori Bell products. It's as easy as liner, lash, boom. Pro Wrestling Pick'em. This is a place where you can create or join a Pick'em league to test your predictive skills in the world of pro wrestling. We have a blast doing it. I was bragging earlier that I went 7-1 at Revolution. Very proud of that. Chasing John DeConnie and Karl for the win. The season turns over after WrestleMania. So get on now, learn the platform. It's absolutely free and it's fun to do. So learn the platform now. And when the new season starts, you'll be ready to rock and roll. And then join us back here for the Essential Wrestling Podcast, episode number 45 next week. We are marching down to 50, getting close to that 1-year anniversary. So should be a great time. Karl will be back, so you won't have to listen to me next week. So that'll be good for everybody.
Oh, thank God.
All right, John Smith, John DeConnie, any parting words before we get out of here on this fine Tuesday and get over to watching Impact?
I think we're good.
There's
Lashley.
All right, guys. So go watch Impact. Go watch AEW Dark. It's 11 matches tonight. Coastal Championship Wrestling has that match with Jake St. Patrick. So you can watch all that. Tuesdays are busy. It's possible that they're going to get a lot busier. We'll tune into NXT tomorrow to find out. For John Smith, for John DeConnie, for Gary Mehaffy, for Travis Severance, I'm Ryan Joy. Thank you very much. We will see you next week.
All right.